And now I'm just happy today that God has allowed me to visit you in this period to see just what is unfolding. And I'm happy He's allowed me to be here in Newark, Delaware. I can remember when Negroes were just going around often scratching when they didn't itch and laughing when they were not tickled. But those days are over. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world. All we are saying is that we are determined to be men. We are determined to be people. We are saying that we are God's children. And if we are God's children, we do not have to live in the place forced to like we live. We aren't going to let any maid stop us. The police don't know what to do. By the hundreds we moved out, and the governor would tell them to sick the dogs on us. Then he said, put the fire hoses on us. But he did not know the fact that there was a certain kind of fire that no water could put out. Amen. And we went before the dogs, and we looked at them, and we went before the fire hose, and we went on singing, over my head I see freedom in the air. They put us in the paddy wagons and stuck us in there like sardines in a can. And we continued singing, we shall overcome. Amen. But all I'm saying to America is to be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or Russia or any other communist country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal treatments. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain human rights because they hadn't committed to themselves over there. But somewhere I read of freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of freedom of press. Somewhere I read of the greatness of Americans to prosper, protest for equal rights. I want to thank God once more for allowing me to be with you. You know, one time I was in New York City, autographing my first book that I had written. And while I was sitting there signing the books, a demented woman came up to me and she simply said, "Are you Martin Luther King?" And I was looking up. I continued signing the book without looking up. The next minute, I felt something beating on my chest, and before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. I was rushed to Harlem Hospital, and the blade had gone through my rib cage, and the x-ray showed that the tip of the blade was right at the edge of my aorta, the main heart artery. And once that vein is punctured, you drown in your own blood, and that is the end of you. Then it came out the next morning in the newspaper that if I had just merely sneezed, I would have died. Well, 4 days later, after the operation, after my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, I could move around in a wheelchair in the hospital, and they allowed me to read some of the mail that came from all over the states and all over the world. Many letters came in, but one of the letters I will never forget. I received letters from the president, the vice president, but I've forgotten what those letters said. I received visits from the governor of New York, but I forgot what his letter said. But there was another letter that came from a little girl who was a student at the White Plains High School. And I looked at that letter and I'll never forget it. It simply said, "Dr. King, I am a 9th grade student at the White Plains High School." She said, "While I should not matter, I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. And I read in the paper of your misfortune and of your suffering. And I read that if you had sneezed, you would have died. And I'm simply writing this letter to say, I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze." But that really doesn't matter now, what happens. As I left for an hour in the morning, I got seated on the plane, and the pilot said over the intercom, "We're sorry for the delay, but we have Dr. Martin Luther King on the plane, and to be sure that all the bags were carefully checked, and to be sure that nothing would go wrong on the plane, we had to check everything carefully. And we've had the plane protected and guarded all night long. But when we got to Memphis, some began to say threats and talk about threats that were going around town about what would happen to me by some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind anybody Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just trust God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want all y'all to know today that you as God's people will get to the promised land. I'm happy today. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. But I come here to Iron Hill to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the Constitution, they were signing a promissory note which was included every American. This note was a promise to all men, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed in the inalienable rights of liberty and pursuit of justice. But it's obvious today that America has defaulted on that promissory note as far as black people are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro a bad check. A check that has come back marked insufficient funds. But I refuse to believe that the Bank of America is bankrupt. I refuse to believe there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity in this nation. So I've come to cash this check. A check that will give us upon demand the riches and freedom and the security of justice. We cannot turn back. Now is the time. Now is the time to raise up from the dark, desolate valleys of poverty to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time for our nation to come from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. I have a dream. I have a dream that's deeply rooted in American freedom. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up out of the true meaning of its creed, that we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. I have a dream that glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is my hope. This is my faith that I go back with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out a mountain of despair, a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to go to church together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together. I stand up for freedom, knowing that one day we will be free. And when we allow freedom to ring, when we let freedom ring from every hamlet, from every city, from every speed of the day, with all God's children, black men, white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Thank you, God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. King, for the visitation to Church of God at Iron Hill.